G'day, H. Mahara here. If you're in a relationship of any type, or have close proximity to, or a relative with borderline personality, how do you know if you're dealing with somebody with Quiet BPD or Classic Acting Out BPD? And maybe especially if you just met this person, or you're in a relationship with this person. Many people that I work with as clients and have for the last 30 years, they have been with people with BPD that are quiet. Often it's men with a quiet borderline woman, but there are men with quiet BPD as well. So what is one of the things that makes those relationships, I'm not going to say more difficult or more damaging, but definitely more formidable? Sort of a little more, quote, crazy making, unquote. Well, it can take a lot longer for people, in especially friendships, being a favorite person of, or a significant other, or a romantic relationship, more so than maybe family members would know, or maybe you wouldn't know somebody has Quiet BPD. Maybe you'd still miss that and wonder, why are they acting like this? Why are they so upset? What now? What is all this chaos and drama about? But if you're the ex of somebody with BPD right now, you just got ghosted, or you're in a relationship with somebody with BPD, or you were, and you're like, I've had so many clients say to me, well, if she wasn't, it took me a long time to figure this out, and it was so painful, and I was like losing my mind because I was so confused. I didn't know if I was coming or going, because they were with somebody with Quiet BPD. And what's the difference there? Well, like I know in my own experience, right? With my late partner, who was a person with Quiet BPD, there was no fighting. There was no arguing. I didn't even see a whole lot of splitting and devaluing. I think looking back now in retrospect, yes. But it was really subtle. It was really not something that impacted me in a way that I went, wow, what's wrong now? Or anything like that. So sometimes people with Quiet BPD are even not, they just internalize and maybe walk away. Or they can internalize the value in the splitting half of the cycle of approach, avoidance, push, pull. And the next thing you know, they've ghosted you. Maybe. And more so now than ever before. There are people with Quiet BPD that when they go through the splitting and the push-pull cycle, what happens, phones are always ringing, what happens is that they not only do the devaluation, but everything is happening internally inside of them. And you might not really get a lot of signs of anything that you know or can perceive for a while to catch on to maybe a pattern. That's wrong. Some people with Quiet BPD just ghost. They actually just leave. Relationship off, relationship on, relationship off, because they're push-pulls. Their internalization of that, they just have this way of doing this, and it's very confusing for people. So people with Quiet BPD, even when you're in the relationship, can take a lot longer to understand what's happening, because people are more used to hearing about the classic acting out raging person with BPD. So when somebody is triggered to the emotional dysregulation that happens in BPD, when they have Quiet BPD, what really happens for them? Well, similar thing inside as what happens to the Classic Acting Out borderline. Difference being reaction. So the Quiet BPD is obviously internalizing reaction, will usually want to go away, may well devalue, and then want to go away, whether that's a total ghost off, on relationship, or just what many people perceive to be the silent treatment. So are they doing that on purpose, giving you the silent treatment? Is that like totally to get you? And, well, more often than not, no. But it is still experienced as a silent treatment. It is still experienced as, unreasonable. You don't know what's going on. You're left hanging there, right? And you don't understand, maybe, for a while. So the other thing about this is that I've had so many clients say, if only my wife, my ex-wife, my girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend, if only they were, and women say it too, about men, or men about men, or women about women, to be honest, right? All orientations in relationships, etc. So, but what I hear a lot is, if only the quiet borderline, or my quiet borderline ex, or whatever, just to stay away from gender, would have yelled at me, or would have raged at me, or done something like throw things around the room, externalizing, right? People say, I would have been out of there. That would have been a deal breaker. And maybe people say that, and maybe they really know that, maybe they don't know that. But definitely it's this quiet BPD presentation can be, for people on the other side of it, crazy making. More so because you don't know what's wrong. Or maybe for a while you don't even recognize anything is wrong. Or they can go through the push-pull, approach avoidance many times in a day, and maybe you're at work. Or you're not together for whatever reason during the day. And you don't even see a lot of this splitting and the cycles that go around, approach avoidance, push-pull, etc. So people are getting more lost, more confused, as hurt, but in a way more hurt, because the person seems to really love you. The person keeps telling you everything's okay. They don't yell at you. They don't argue. And not all people with BPD that are quiet BPD are the same, but many of them might make it known in a day or two they're unhappy. They might say something. It sort of goes from the mean, sweet cycle. They might be a little bit mean in a criticism, or say something that is projected onto you that you didn't do, but they can't take responsibility for. And then they may go back, to being sweet. And then, but there's always this delay of any way that you can really tell until you really understand the pattern and or start doing research. What's going on with this person? And so people have told me over the years, and I know from my own experience with my late, ex, essentially, partner with quiet BPD, I could never understand, and in retrospect only, I could never understand why she was sort of distant, or maybe seemed aloof, or kind of like she was really inside herself in retrospect. And yeah, it was really quiet, I guess that was the silent treatment, but I didn't even recognize that because it was so subtle. So there's the quiet borderline, and the reality of not understanding for many people for a long time, or me, 4.5 years of a relationship, and I only learned it all in retrospect after. It's incredibly damaging and wounding because people don't know what's going on. And it sort of really gives an increased effect of that crazy making, because it's not chaos and it's not drama. And you can't really name it, but you have this feeling. And something's going on. And you might not even be aware of the push-pull until you start looking into this, right? Maybe you know this now. But so many people say that they wish that the person they were with BPD wasn't the quiet borderline, because if they'd been yelled at or raged at, they would have left a long time ago. And so this major difference is that obviously the acting out, raging, so-called, the way it's termed, externalizing person with borderline personality is going to do just that. They're going to get triggered, which you're not responsible for their triggers. They're going to rage. They're going to yell. They might scream. They might have a full-on tantrum that is very much emotional dysregulation to the trigger, and sometimes age regression is involved. And so, but they might throw things. They can, not all are the same, right? But some may yell, some may scream, the rage. They might throw things, they might not. They might get physical even. So that is chaos. That is drama. That is obvious, though so crazy making, because you're not sure where this came from. And all of a sudden, and people talk about when you have plans to travel, or you're going to take a vacation, or, you were really looking forward to spending time at your parents' house, your family's house, or her family's house, or whatever the case, right? And wow, they have trouble following through with plans. They get stressed before things. They get triggered before things. And there's all these reactions that either happen, the day before, or a little bit, or days before, or leading up to. And so many people who are with an externalizing borderline, they get yelled at, they get raged at. Many men, even with women with BPD, get, the physical aspect of, they're acting out. And also they cause such, stress, and you still don't know much more about what's really happening or why when this initially happens than people who are with the quiet borderline, only something's wrong, right? You really know something's wrong. And it's kind of, in a way, comparable, but not really, to people who are with a quiet BPD. They know something's wrong too. They know something's off too, as I can remember with my late but ex-partner who was quiet BPD. But, with the quiet BPD, it's like, okay, something's off, but like, what is, I don't know. But guess what? If you were the externalizing borderline, you still might not know what's going on. With the chaos, the drama, the rage, the yelling, the screaming, maybe throwing things, maybe not. Maybe getting physical with you, maybe not. But you might be like, whoa, like, you don't have reference for where this is coming from, because something triggered it in the here now, but the triggers are inside of them. So the way they react and their behavior, boom, in the case of the externalizing borderline, and you're like, you may still not have a clue what happened. And then people have a tendency to go like, what did I say? What did I do? What? Right? And that's not what made that happen. But they'll tell you that it's because you said this, or you didn't say that, or you did this, or you didn't do that. Or it might be something that happened 6 hours ago, 3 days ago, 2 weeks ago. It's like, and or something right now they think that you did that you didn't do, or that you should have said that you didn't say, and then the stockpile of, but last Tuesday you did, and a week ago Friday you. So the externalizing borderline is going to give you all that and then some. And then when they're finished the rage, and for some there's a tantrum portion to that, and for others it's maybe not such, but it is akin to that. As soon as they get all that energy out, can really change quickly and go back to a baseline of emotional state, or just calmer. And then they're like ready to pick up and carry on. And you're like, wait a minute, what just happened here? Like, and maybe they threw stuff in the places a mess. Maybe they just put a hole in another wall. And you're like, what? And they expect you to just pick up and carry on because now they feel fine. That's also very much a conundrum, and people have a lot of difficulty trying to figure that out, because again, it's not that figure outable because it doesn't make sense in the here and now. So people often are left with the F.O.G, the fear, obligation, and guilt, thinking that you must have somehow caused that. Because they're going to tell you that later if they haven't told you that already, but it doesn't mean that it's your responsibility. And so the person with quiet BPD, well, sometimes they just get sulky, and they might not want to sit near you, and they'll go to the other end of the couch or to another chair, or they might leave the room, or various different things they might do, but they're not even slamming things around. It's all internalized, and you're like, what's up with that? Two very different presentations, and yet in the middle, what's there for people? Confusion, hurt, thinking you did something wrong when you didn't, thinking you said something wrong, or you should have done something this way or that way instead of whatever you were doing. This is chaotic for people. And just wanted to underscore that with Quiet BPD, a lot of clients say to me, I wish she was the acting out raging one because then I would have left for sure. That would have been it. So it's interesting because for people with codependency, which is more people than like 95% of people, but not every single person with a person with BPD has codependency. And there is a more elaborate explanation to that. And maybe I'll share that at ajmahari.co. So sign up for that free membership so you can watch more videos I'm going to have coming there. That won't be here. Some will be here, more are going to be over there. But the point is anyway, so borderline personality, 1 response to adverse childhood experience, 2 different presentations, leaving the codependent in the middle really confused, and wanting to pursue the quiet borderline who's gone off somewhere or split totally, like left, it ghosted you, which some people have that pattern. Well, you want to pursue to find out what's wrong to get them to come back, right? That's part of codependency. It's overreaching instead of waiting for them to come back, or but then they can't talk about what it is, and because they don't have a self and they're not able to take personal responsibility. And then with the raging, acting out borderline, you're like, they might storm off, they might come back, when they're finished, they might sit down, and they'll be like, what's with you? Like nothing happened. And either way, people are like, whoa, and what do you want to do in either case? After it's all over, so to speak? You want clarification, you want to talk about it, you want to ask questions about it. You're like, what did I do? What's going on here? It's a real conundrum and dilemma for people. When you're loving somebody with BPD, or even if you're the ex and like you want to try again, or you're getting rehoovered, all this stuff, it's compelling and crazy making, and understandably so. And yet people with codependency in either scenario will one way or the other overextend, overgive, whether it's the simple putting up with or, rather kind of accepting, but it's not acceptable, the raging acting out borderline presentation and experience over and over again. And where do you go with that in your head? And how is it okay to continue after that when it keeps happening and it keeps happening? And then there's the quiet borderline. People are like, what? I don't know what's going on. But either way you slice it, at least people with codependency in the dilemma of one way or the other overgiving. Because what is the similarity in the middle between the quiet borderline and acting out after these, let's call them episodes or times happen, is that you want to know what happened. And whether a quiet borderline or an externalizing borderline, neither is going to be able to explain it to you. Both are going to look at you and go, you did. You shouldn't have done. You said this. You said that. Next thing you know, you're going to get yourself into one of those jade conversations. Justify, argue, defend, and explain. Bottom line is, this is one of the difficulties that happens no matter the manifestation, internal or externalizing with BPD. For people with codependence, in those moments when a cycle, they're sort of coming back from the internalization or the externalization, and they don't have the ability to understand why they felt the way they felt because it was triggered, includes dissociation, emotional dysregulation, and sometimes age regression. And that's when they can present like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5-year-olds. They're not walking around like 2-year-olds pretending to be adults. Okay? So I hope that was helpful. And I'm going to have a lot more coming about Quiet BPD. And most of that will be at ajmahari.co. So I hope you're going to join that membership. It's free. And in the meantime, just know that if you're being hoovered, or you feel like you want to hoover, if you're the ex, if it's off again or on again, you're not going to get anything different if you open that door again. So try to keep remembering, try to keep thinking about that each time you go around one of these cycles of them. They go around their push-pull, approach avoidance, whatever triggers them, can happen for some people with quiet BPD or externalizing BPD often. And often more than once a day, and maybe some it's a few times a week, and some it's a few times a month, but it can be often, more often than not. These two opposite presentations of borderline personality, codependent partner in relationship, nightmare, because they're going to blame you. They're going to project it out onto you, and you're already probably blaming yourself. Fear, obligation, and guilt. Hope that was helpful. Take care.